Well, I guess I've decided maybe it's time to do a new series along with some of the other things that I typically do anyhow. Um, Maybe it's time to give my story, the good and the bad. I'm not going to do it all in one video. It'll be in parts, and it may not be consecutive. It'll probably, be here and there as I can do it when I have time or when the time is right. I was born in Warner Robins, Georgia, to Daniel and Cheryl Akins on January 30th, 1980. For those of you that don't know where that's at, I will give you the opportunity to go educate yourself. That's the best way you can learn. Learn geography. At the time, my dad was he had done a few different things, including getting into a lot of trouble growing up, which will, as the story progresses and certain things we talk about, or I decide I'm going to talk about, I may uh, bring some of those stories up as well to compare with me. At the time, like I said, Daddy was he was in construction before I was born, as I was after I was conceived during a April snowstorm in the Warner Robins area, and he was a roofer and doing a couple of little things uh, that he got caught at. Uh, he decided he'd always been mechanically inclined. He was really smart when it came to cars. He liked taking things apart to see how they worked to put them back together as he was a child. He went to work at a tire store called Wall Tire Service, and as he described it, he started out with nothing but a tackle box with some hand tools. Not even any real, he was hired to do tires and I guess or tires and brakes. I think it was just tires. And then he would train to do other things while there as to move up. When he got to brakes, that's all he was doing it with was a tackle box full of some small hand tools, not even any real brake tools like an actual mechanic back then in the 80s would even consider to be like brake tools. It was just like, uh, MacGyvering it. Um, Him and Mama finally bought a house through HUD, or HOA, I believe is what it was. I might be saying it wrong. If I am, I'm sorry. I'd have to get online and do some research, but I believe it was a HUD house something in that relation. And I think he said that he bought the house for $1 down. They had programs like that back then. I don't think they still have them now. If they do, the eligibility is obviously nowhere near the same as what it was then. Um, anyway, they bought their first house on Camellia Circle in Warner Robins. After I was born, a couple years later, or 3 years later, excuse me, my two siblings were born. Brandy Akins at the time, Sherry Akins at the time. Also during that time, we were more around my daddy's side of the family, my grandfather, grandmother, and aunt. My uncle at the time lived in Augusta, but everybody else pretty much lived right there. My grandfather and grandmother were originally from Thomaston, Georgia. He got out of Thomaston, went into the Air Force, and I guess she stayed, and she had another situation prior to their involvement finally. But when I was about 5 years old, my dad's mom, called her Nana, she passed away. And then about a year after, if I'm not mistaken, when I was 6, my mother's mom passed away. She went by Granny. My mother's from Colorado Springs, Colorado. So that's why we weren't around her side of the family as much. And it was, financially hard to go out there all the time, or to even, buy her a round trip plane ticket, or whatever the case would be. Daddy didn't make a whole lot in the mechanicing field, but he was good. He was good at it. That was the first time I think she went. Before her mom passed away, she went out there to visit her a few times. One of those times I went with her as a baby. That's when I got a pair of Delta wings as a reminder from Delta, from one of the stewardess, I believe. But not long after that, long after the final grandmother passed away, I was about 6 years old when we moved. Daddy got a job offer. I think it was for an assistant manager position at the Wall Tire in Columbus, Georgia. So we were out there for a while. Basically, I went from an elementary school in Warner Robins, or the Warner Robins area, through about it was about a semester there, and then I was the final semester of kindergarten in Columbus, and I think I went halfway through first grade there. And he got another uh, promotion, where he got asked if he would go to another one of their stores. I think he was still assistant manager at this store. He might have been manager. He was either still assistant manager at one in Columbus, or might have had become management, or might have become the store manager at the time. Because I remember they supplied him with a company vehicle, and it was an old, wore out Ford pickup truck, I believe, 70s model. And I believe no, that might have been the next location. I think it was. I think it was the next location. Not wasn't in Columbus. Anyway, he got transferred to their store in Manchester, Georgia. Wall Tire Service in Manchester, Georgia. Still doing the same stuff. I think he'd gotten more training and other things at that point, obviously. Um, and he was store manager there. They gave him a company vehicle to drive. Uh, and that's where I finished up my final portion of first grade in Manchester Elementary. And I stayed in Manchester Elementary all up to the fourth grade. Well, all up to the fourth grade, and come fifth grade, they decided to rezone the fifth grade. Why? Or they decided to rezone the school districts or whatever. I ended up having to finish my final year, my fifth grade year of elementary school at Warm Springs, Georgia. Uh, Went through that for that year. That was a shit show. Didn't care nothing for it. Didn't care nothing for the teachers. Didn't care nothing for the kids. Didn't get along a whole lot there. Uh, During that time, or actually before that time, when we were living in Manchester, Daddy decided to buy this cottage house in Warm Springs. So we moved to Warm Springs while I was still in Manchester Elementary. But anyway, then we went to Warm Springs. He was the store manager for a little while at Manchester. Mama was having medical problems. She kept passing out at the house while I was there. I'd have to call him numerous times to get him to come. Had to go use a neighbor's phone, get him to come home, take her to the hospital or take her to the doctor or whatever. I don't remember what the issue was. I've been told several times, but my memory just doesn't always remember everything. And that was pretty much the first time that I ever had to really step up and be the big be sort of an adult. You know, think on my feet. Go make phone calls, call who's needed to be called, all this stuff. So anyway, while he was working at Wall Tire in Manchester, then we moved to Warm Springs, and I had to go through fifth grade at Warm Springs Elementary. Then I got to go back to Manchester to the junior high or middle school. Did all my time there. In the meantime, during that time, he had Mama. He had hired Mama as the bookkeeper for Wall Tire. Or no, I think this was at the time Wall Tire turned into Goodyear. And he left. She was working there with him as a bookkeeper. And then that had to be done away with because corporate found out and said that was not right because of favoritism. And also during that time, he had an issue with an employee. Excuse me. Also during that time, he had an issue with an employee that was stealing on the job. And he confronted him and he fired him. Well, that night, he came with his parents, grown ass man, came with his parents so they could try to get him back his job. Daddy went outside. There was a discussion. There was arguing going on. Next thing we know, he comes back inside and they leave, and his mother slapped my dad. By that night, they had gotten a warrant issued for my daddy's arrest, saying he slapped her. Meriwether County Sheriff's Department. Well, needless to say, we had to go try to get him bailed out. Took all overnight, all the next day. And come time to go to court about it, they never showed and the case got dropped. Meantime, they decided to make some more trouble and tried to drive through our yard and stuff and tried to shoot up the house, and Daddy had to go out there and defend his property. And we put warrants out for their arrest. And or Daddy put warrants out for their arrest. I was too young. Daddy left. Daddy, after all that, and then he left from there, left from Goodyear, went to work for Meadows Motors, which was the only car dealership we had in town, family owned and operated. They had a Chevy dealership and a Ford dealership. And he went to work for the Ford to start with and couldn't get along with the service manager. So he left, went back to Goodyear, and then got offered to come back to Ford. Went back to Ford, or went back, got offered to work at Chevrolet. Went to work at Chevrolet, got asked to come back to Ford, went back to Ford, left Ford, went back to Goodyear. And then got asked to go back to Chevrolet. And when they tried to get him to go back to Ford, said, if you send me back to Ford, I'll never come back to work for you ever again. So they left him at Chevrolet. And he moved up, became a service manager, stayed there for years. Meantime, Brandy and Sherry had started their school at Manchester. I know I'm going back and forth. I'm doing this by memory. Different pieces of memory click off on me as I talk about something else. Just the way I work sometimes. Probably should have just wrote all this stuff down in a chronological order and just read off of it like a script, but I don't particularly like doing all that because you can still forget things as you're writing them down anyway. So what's the difference? Let's just do it. I'm just going to do it the way I want to do it. If you don't like it, don't watch anymore. I'm not going to try to make these videos, each video, very long either. Anyway, Brandy and Sherry, they started in Manchester Elementary. uh, ended up having to go with me to Warm Springs. They had to stay at Warm Springs while I went back to Manchester Middle or junior high. They finished their years up in Warm Springs, and then uh, I went to Manchester High for to start ninth grade, and they started junior high at Manchester Middle because Warm Springs didn't have a middle or high school. That was the middle and high school, depending on where you were at, in Meriwether County as well. Obviously, whatever you're zoned or district for. Um, During that time, I gotten into some interest. Found some interest. Um, During it was either late elementary or I think it was early junior high years when I had my first, second, possibly the third or fourth girlfriend, and this one was more of a more serious girlfriend. I'd had a couple through elementary and stuff like that, and even before I even started school, I had one in church and one in Robbins. Um, and that's really not girlfriend stuff. That's just more like, your little bitty kids that are just, playing with each other and stuff. And it's not really, not really any kind of a relationship. I mean, you really don't get into to real relationship stuff till you get into high school anyway, high school and above. Um, Hell, you don't even know how to spell relationship when you're that young. Uh, it's puppy love and stupid stuff like that, drama mainly. But this girl right here, I thought was gonna be the one. I was too young and stupid. I admit to it. Um, Probably a good thing now because she turned psychopath anyway. Um, that's a whole different story. She was related to uh, my grandfather's girlfriend. That's how we met. She lived out near Savannah. But anyway, in high school, I took auto mechanics. It's one of my extra classes and stuff. Didn't do too good with the core classes. Did okay, Um, Growing up, I had my friends and my bullies, more bullies than friends. Um, I didn't really, I wasn't a real sociable person because of how I'd been treated all through my life and belittled. I didn't have much to do with many people. I tried to stay to myself a lot. Um, when I was 12, it's kind of going back to the junior high days. When I was 12, while Daddy was working at Meadows Motors Chevrolet, him and Mama were having marital problems, and he thought he was going to leave Mama. He cheated, obviously. Trouble came from all that. The woman he was cheating with, her ex-boyfriend, decided she was going to try to run down Daddy and beat his ass. So he tried to come by the house one night while he was over there with her. While Daddy was over with this woman, trying to his very best, half cranked up on whatever he had been using. I mean, drugs. And tried to force his way through Mama through the front door. And I about had to grab a rifle and blow his damn head off at 12 years old. But I knew. See, I learned about de-escalating situations when I was when I was a preteen, long before I got into some of the careers I got into. I knew that if I had tried to do anything, it would have escalated. And I didn't want anybody to get hurt, especially my mother, especially Mama. She didn't deserve it. He deserved it, and Daddy deserved it. No doubt that Daddy deserved it. Anyway, I kind of got in the middle of the whole relationship and caused it to fizzle out in my way. I ruined the whole thing between him and her. Well, me and my sisters both. A lot of it had to do with me because she never could get me on her side. The other woman. She never could get me to take a liking to her. She had a daughter that was about my age, and here's the funny part: she tried to get me and her together to try to make her and Daddy's relationship work out. When you got to when you got to stretch that hard, when you got to try that hard to make a relationship work out, there's a problem, and it happens all the time, even to this day. You know, the adults try to get the kids to pick sides, see who's going to win, who's going to lose the whole situation. But I'm already 20 minutes into this thing. Yeah, it didn't work out. And then later on, me and her daughter kind of got into it in high school. Skeletons come out of the closet, whether if you like them or whether if you would want it to or not, whether if you like it to or not. It just happens. And they did. They did at the school. Me and her had our words and we had our moments. And she made threats and I made her stand up to them. And she wouldn't. That's all I'm going to say about that. I told her she was nothing more than a whore like her mama. Because I already knew things about her before she got there. Put it this way, usually the apple never falls far from the tree, in most cases. Whether if it's girls or boys. You take that however you want to, and you can use your own imagination with it. Yeah, we're about 30 minutes in. Kids are going to be home from school here any minute anyway. Probably best just to stop right here and do some more. I might try to do some more over the weekend. Just have to see how it goes. But anyway, that's got you up through with me on up to about halfway point of high school anyway. Um, Actually, I take that back. That um, that moment with her daughter in school didn't happen in junior high. That's when we started going to school together. Uh, my bad, my fault. See, I told you things get jumbled up. But yeah, that happened in junior high. That wasn't in high school. We went through high school together too, till thank God her and her slutty mom moved. Um, but you know what? Can't necessarily call her mom anything, because it takes two. It takes two. Daddy was just as guilty in his sins as what she was. Uh, Chances are he was probably the one that pursued her, just because I know Daddy. He Before he met Mama, he had all kinds of trouble trying to keep his pants on. I guess my dad was a man slut. Everybody wonders why I'm such a pervert. Go figure. Like I said a minute ago, apple don't fall far from the tree, whether it's a boy or a girl. Amongst some other things. But anyway, 32 minutes in, I'm going to go and cut this off. We'll pick up from there next time. Talk to you guys later. Try to stay warm. Anyway, it gets even more interesting from this point. Talk to you later.